I'm proposing to you to not use the term DEI because DEI is not
No,
your
I'm going
term.
to use it
But that
all day, every
DEI was not
day,
invented in the
Rob.
business realm, though. DEI was invented by far left identitarian, sometimes socialist, Marxist activists. That's their term. So
So
you're
what?
so.
I don't care.
By
It
the way,
conveys.
they,
I
they would probably
co-opted,
call you
Rob.
racist for
What?
co-opting their term
Rob,
and
I
not saying.
co-opted industries. I'm changing healthcare with costplusdrugs.com. I started the streaming industry. I did the first all high-def TV network. Every time someone said, "Oh, don't do that," fuck that, right? I'm just telling you, I'll co-op shit. I don't care. I'm telling you, and we're having a great conversation on this. Just because someone else used it, who started the Democratic Party, who switched, the Southern, there's all this nomenclature that evolves over time. The term woke is evolved. Just everything evolves over time. So just the idea, don't use it because this person started. I don't
You,
care.
you, you need better terms or
I don't need
properly
better terms.
redefine.
Rob,
Okay,
you can either decide to, look at it from my perspective, and I think you have, and I appreciate that, and disagree that I use this term, but there's nothing you can say that can tell me to change it. It's not going to happen.
okay. Well, as you know, people mean different things by DEI, and the DEI advocates, right, the most popular ones, they don't mean what you mean by it, and so that's worth noting on your part. And maybe you should do a better job when you're saying I support DEI. You should be like, hey, I'm not supporting closing racial disparities just for the sake of closing them, which is what the advocates are saying.
Rob, I've been very clear what I mean by it. I say it early. I say it often. I say it late. I
Okay.
say it during the day. I'm very consistent in what I've said. I say it online. I say it in speeches I give. I sit in groups that where, people who are very supportive probably of the people that you've mentioned, and I stick to the same definition. And you are the only person ever who has told me not to use the term. And that's fine. You can, and I respect your willingness to ask, but it's not going to happen.
Okay, fine. The remaining disagreement we have on this, and I'm glad we're filtering through all this noise, the virtue signaling, what companies are actually doing, right? We were establishing DEI, the goals the companies are setting, they're not actually being met in some cases. In other cases, they are being met. And so, and I
So
sense
you
there
got to
is,
show me data other than one article. You got to show me
okay,
company specific data.
okay. Apple, they increased the number of black employees in leadership by nearly 60% from 2020 to 2024.
Okay.
Microsoft increased their black and African American representation among employees by 1.5%. Okay, that's pretty small. Google, they saw a 27% increase in black plus, whatever that means, leadership representation from 2020 to 2023. So that leaves us with two possibilities on that front. And I think the answer is pretty obvious. Either Google, Microsoft, and these other companies before were for some reason perpetuating racism and not properly casting a wide net and giving black Americans equal opportunity. Or what's more likely is what's happening is that they're deliberately looking for black talent, even if it might mean that they're a bit less or maybe more substantially less qualified than white talent. I
Well,
disagree
you're
with that.
saying by definition, if you hire more black people, they must
No,
be less qualified.
I give you two scenarios. I said
No, but one
either.
of those is that's exactly what you said. You gave examples of these numbers going up, and you
Yeah,
specifically said that by definition, it means that they must have hired people less qualified,
that's not what I said.
suggesting, yes, you did.
I said those are two scenarios. I said, or the scenario is that those companies were racist in their hiring and talent pool
That was the
before.
first option, right?
That was, yeah. So either
And
either
go
for
to the second option. What was your second option?
or the second option is that you're hiring more black people just for the sake of having more black people.
And so that's only an issue. So if you're hiring more black people, are they more qualified? No, let me rephrase that. The black people you hired, is it possible in your mind that they just cast a wider net and
Yeah,
they found more qualified black people?
that I already said in the first option.
Okay,
That's
so
that's
why are you
possible
presuming when you give these numbers, why are you presuming that that's not the case? Because you just said in your
because the percentage is so ginormous. 60% more black employees,
Oh,
30%.
so it's impossible to find because there's also maybe they started from a small base. Maybe there were only 100 black employees in those positions, and they increased it to 161. But you don't seem to think it's feasible that they just are more qualified and that's why Microsoft hired them?
Sure, but then that means that Microsoft's original policy for hiring people was incredibly racist, or that they were not inclusive to other racial groups, which means, wow, that's a lot of
Maybe,
racism if that's true.
well, maybe they just didn't do a good job and they improved. Is that possible?
Yeah, but
Okay.
60%
Why did you not give
60%
that?
increase in black applicants?
Yeah, but from what number to what number?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. We can find the granular details, but those are big
You don't
jumps.
think that matters? Look, either you believe that you can find more qualified black people by casting a wider net, or you don't. And just because a number is 61% doesn't mean that either A, they were inefficient at what they were doing before, even though it's possible, or B, doesn't mean they were less qualified because it's a big percentage. Not at all.
I'm saying it's very likely that you are honing in on race as a sole variable. You want more black people in the wake of BLM and George Floyd. You don't want activists to get mad at you. You have potentially woke employees who are saying, "Oh, there's too many white guys here. Let's have more gay people, trans people, black people." And to address that pushback, you're now selecting for these specific racial and gender groups to have at your company.
So they're selecting for these racial and gender groups to have in their company.
Yeah.
What's the rest of it?
I mean, that's it. There's this obsessive focus on race and gender and sexual orientation. And so then that's what they're using.
You realize the underlying presumption there, right? Is that it's not possible that they were qualified because you think it's a big percentage. So because it's a big percentage, it's not possible that they just happened to interview more and find more qualified candidates, and they hired some of them because they were more qualified.
I'm sure some of them are more qualified.
Oh, but some of them are more qualified because it's impossible to find a big number of black people who are more qualified, right?
Unless your company was executing a racist policy and you were not
or you just
properly
didn't
giving
do a
black
good
people
job.
fair
It didn't
shake.
necessarily have to be intentional. It didn't have to be intentional. Maybe they just started paying attention to it. Maybe because of all the things that happened with BLM, they started paying attention to their hiring policies and realized they were not doing a good job. Is that possible?
It's possible, but then
Okay, why wasn't that option number 3? Why wasn't them casting a wider net option number 4, Rob?
Because if you're casting a wider net, why are we specifically focusing on black Americans and transgender Americans,
Rob,
gay Americans,
you're
minority people?
focusing on them. You are focusing on them.
No, the companies are focusing on them.
They're reporting, right? You are focusing on what they reported because the only reason you know these numbers is why.
They reported it.
Right.
And it's in line with their stated goals.
Focusing on that because if you look at the EEOC numbers, what are the demographic categories that they have to report?
Gender, race, ethnicity.
So they reported what they had to report by law. And you're saying, and so you're trying to make it out like because they reported it, they must be living up to this approach of only hiring because of demographic. And what I'm telling you, no, they're just doing what they need to do by law. And you're looking at it, looking for things to support your point that you're trying to make that they must have put race and gender, etc., over qualifications. There's no
I think they put
evidence in any of that.
disproportionate emphasis on immutable characteristics. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what you're saying, but you have no evidence whatsoever. You're guessing that.
It's okay. Let's see if we can resolve this disagreement.
Yes or no? Are you guessing that?
Well, it's based on ginormous jumps in these numbers, and the fact that these statistics have changed.
The EEOC, Rob, just for your own edification, right? I don't have it here. The EEOC numbers include actual numbers if they're public. Okay. And you can go back, and at the bottom of them, it gives a total. And then underneath, usually it says the previous years. So you can see the jump, which is what you've been able to identify.
Yeah, 60%, 30% jumps.
Right, but you could look at the actual numbers, and you get to see what the reference points are. Is it a huge number? They had, out of 100,000 employees, now they have many more, 97,000 were black, and they increased it 61%. Okay, you look and you can see the actual numbers. Or was it 100,000 employees, and 4,000 of them were black, and they increased it to 4,240. Hired 240 more.
Yeah. I got that point. Let me say it this way, and then hopefully we can move on to the next topic after this. Let's see if we can resolve this disagreement here. Okay, if I'm the owner of a company and I want to have people of different backgrounds, diverse experiences, and to clarify, I said earlier, I mentioned all kinds of things: personality, life experience, family background, religious background, political opinions. I think that the totality of the person should be potentially considered in a lot of places. Of what has this person endured? What kind of experiences have they had? Has this person been, given a trust fund when they were kids and just had everything handed to them on a platter, or did this person overcome a lot of hardship and worked multiple jobs? Okay, if I'm the CEO of a company, and tell me if you disagree with this, and I'll grant you that companies can do what they want, okay, as long as they're not violating civil rights law. But if I'm the CEO of a company or CEO of 10 companies, I would be selecting based on merit. We want people of diverse experiences, people who come from different backgrounds, but not hone in on race and gender and sexual orientation. We just want the best people. And we want people who've overcome challenges, who've overcome hardships. But the problem of what these other companies, what they've said is, we want to double our black workforce. We want to increase minority representation. And what happens is, by doing that, you are potentially favoring privileged black guy, privileged brown guy who, his parents went to Ivy League universities. He went to Harvard, had all these things handed to them, didn't have to work multiple jobs in college. Okay, you preferentially favor that guy over the poor white guy who grew up in inner city Baltimore, who had a single mom, had to work 2 different jobs in high school. But because he's white, he is actively not the black applicant is preferenced over the white applicant simply because of race. And so what I'm advocating for is looking at merit and the person's skills, life experiences, and not focusing on race. And so that's the problem of DEI. I mean, do you disagree with my approach of not factoring in race at all and just factoring the person's skill sets and what they've been through in life, let's say?
Look, I've done blind applications, so that'll tell you where I stand, right? But when you look, you're never going to have 2 people that are exactly the same. And so it's never going to be a balance in their resumes. There's always going to be something different. So why do you give preference to somebody who grew up like me versus someone who's growing up like my kids? Because both of us, let's just say we graduated college at the same time. We're in a movie, it's switch, right? And we come back and we're graduating at the same time. How do you make that determination? If you're the person in charge of hiring, how do you determine one candidate versus another?
Okay, we do an interview, and let's say, okay, well, what was your high school experience like?
Let's just say you love them both. They were different, but you love them both.
Okay, if they both have roughly equal education, and SAT scores, GPAs, whatever, and the one guy, he had a single mom and he had to work 3 jobs in high school and college, and the other guy, his dad was a hedge fund manager, I might be more interested in the guy who had to work his fucking ass off to get to where he is right now, as opposed to the other guy.
There's nothing that stops you from doing that. That's, everybody's going to make hiring people who are doing the HR is going to make the determination based off of what they think is best. Now,
but that's not what companies said in 2020. That's not what companies said in 2020. They said we want to double our black workforce. That's different from what I said.